Hi class, let's take a look at topic 5 DQ2. In this DQ, we're going to be building a frequency distribution. So we are going to determine an equal bin width for all of our bins. We're going to build our bins based on the bin width, the minimum and maximum we have, and then we're going to distribute all of our data into the different bins, and then we'll build a histogram representing the frequencies. Alright, so let's get started. So we're going to start by filling in the bin table. In the bin table, we need to find the minimum, the maximum, and the bin width. When we do the min and the max, we're going to include a small buffer of 0.1 in that min and that max. What that buffer is going to do is it's going to add a little bit of extra room that Excel needs for technical reasons. So when Excel does the frequency function, it needs this little bit of buffer so it can build your bins correctly and distribute all of the data into the bins correctly. So we're going to include a buffer of 0.1. In other videos, you could see a buffer of 1. You could also see videos that do not have a buffer. Sometimes they skip over it, so just keep that in mind. I'm going to use a buffer of 0.1. You can follow other methods you see. I will not take off any points if you do not include the buffer as well. Alright, so let's start with the minimum. So the minimum, we're going to use our min function equals min. Open the parentheses, select all of the data in column B, close the parenthesis, and then after you close the parenthesis, this is where we're going to add in our buffer. I'm going to add in a minus 0.1. That's going to be my little buffer I'm using in my min. And again, this is to help Excel with technical reasons. Excel needs that little bit of buffer to make sure it includes all the values for that bin. For the maximum, we're going to use the max function. Follow the same methods as the min function, but make sure you use the word max. And then after you close the parenthesis, we want to add the 0.1. So the max function, open parenthesis, select all the data in column B, close the parenthesis, add the 0.1. The bin width, this is going to represent the size of each of our bins. This has to stay the same for all the bins, so each bin has to have an equal bin width. The bin width is going to be the range divided by the number of bins. The number of bins are represented in the table. Each row of the table represents a bin. Okay, each row of the table represents a bin. So we have 11 rows in our table, so we have 11 bins. So we need to take the range divided by 11 to find the bin width. When we do the range is the max minus the min. We need to make sure we include that range in parentheses to work out of our order of operations. So we'll do our equal sign, open parenthesis, max minus the min, close parenthesis, and divide by 11. And again, it's 11 because we're creating 11 bins. We have 11 rows in the frequency table. And then hit enter. Alright, so we are going to build 11 bins. Our 11 bins, we're going to start at negative 14.4. We're going to end at 60.8, and each bin is going to have a width of 6.8. So that means the distance between the lower and the upper limit in the bin is going to be 6.8. Alright, so for the lower limit, we're going to start with the first lower limit, then we'll do the upper limits, and then we'll go back and finish the lower limits. The first lower limit is the minimum. So for your first lower limit, type your equal sign, click on your minimum. Every single upper limit is going to be the lower limit plus the bin width. So for my upper limit, I do my equal sign, the lower limit plus the bin width. If you want to autofill this, make sure you put dollar signs in with the bin width because the bin width has to stay the same through all formulas. So every single upper limit formula is going to take the lower limit plus the bin width. Each one has to have the same bin width, so we put the dollar signs in with the bin width cell reference. Alright, once you get that first upper limit, you can autofill that down to the bottom of your table using the bottom right corner of the cell. Now, the second and the rest of the lower limits are each going to cell reference the previous upper limit. So for the second lower limit, I would type my equal sign and I'd click on the previous upper limit and then hit enter. And this process is going to repeat down the table, and then you can go ahead and autofill any lower limit besides the first one. So you can autofill the second one, the third one, any of the other ones. Just do not autofill that first lower limit. So I'm going to autofill the third one because that's the most recent one I have completed. So I'll click on it, hover over the bottom right corner of the cell, click, hold, and drag to the bottom of the table. All right, at this point, once you filled out all of your limits, you should be starting at your minimum. My minimum was negative 14.4. I'm starting at negative 14.4, and then I'm ending at the maximum, which is 60.8. The title of the bin, this is going to be the title of the bin. It is the midpoint. We're using the midpoint to represent the title. This is what we're going to call the bin. The midpoint is the sum of the lower and the upper limit divided by 2. So let me write that up here. Title of bin, lower limit plus upper limit divided by 2. Make sure you put that addition in parentheses. So you add first and then divide by 2. So equal sign, open parentheses, lower limit plus upper limit, close the parenthesis, and divide by 2. 2. And then that formula you're going to follow all the way down for all of the title of bins. Feel free to autofill if you want to go ahead and autofill that one. So you can grab the bottom right corner, you can autofill it down. Each formula should be taking the lower limit plus the upper limit in parentheses divided by 2. Okay, so now let's find the frequency. So we've built our bins, we gave each bin a title so we know how to refer to it. Now we need to determine the frequency. The frequency represents the number of data points that are in that bin. So the way Excel is going to do that, it's going to read your lower and your upper limit, and it's going to grab all of the numbers that are greater than that lower limit up to and including the upper limit. So for my first bin, it is looking for all the numbers that are greater than negative 14.4 and less than or equal to negative 7.6. For the next one, it's looking for all the numbers greater than negative 7.6 and then less than or equal to negative 0.7. We're going to use the frequency function to do the calculation. So type your equal sign, type out the word frequency, open the parenthesis. After you open the parenthesis, you need to put your data from column B first. So go to column B, highlight all the data in column B. And then you're going to do a comma, and then you're going to highlight the upper limits. You want to highlight all of the upper limits except for the last one. If you include the last one, you're going to get an overflow of a number that's going to sit below your table, and that's fine. Try to not include the last one, and then Excel will fill in the cells exactly, and you won't have any overflow into that below the table. All right, so you have your frequency function, you open the parentheses, you selected the data, column B, you typed a comma, you selected the upper limits, every upper limit except for the last one, and then you close the parenthesis and hit enter. If your function looks like this, so some may show as B2 colon B103, that is the same thing. They're doing the same thing. It's two different ways to represent that data in column B. So if you see that difference in water quality, B2, B103, and then make sure you have your upper limit cell referenced, then you're good to go and hit enter. And you should see all the cells fill in. So this represents how many of our data values fall into that range. So in our first bin, we have 2. So 2 of our change in water qualities from column B are between negative 14.4 and negative 7.6, including the negative 7.6. And then for this bin, we have 23 values that are between 19.8 and 26.6, including the 26.6. All right, relative frequency. The relative frequency is the percentage representation of the frequency. So the frequency tells you how many things are in that bin. The relative frequency tells you what percentage of things are in that bin compared to the total amount of data we have. So to find the relative frequency, we need to take the frequency divided by the total number of differences we have in column B. We need to use an Excel formula to find the total number of differences. We can do 2 different ways to do this. We can use the count function or the sum function. I'm going to use the count function, and I'm going to have it count everything we have in column B. All right, so relative frequency, I'm going to do my equal sign. I want to select all of the frequencies. Then I want to do my division. type out the word count, open the parenthesis, and select the data in column B. This will take each of the frequencies divided by the total number of differences we have in column B, and that will give us our relative frequency. And then go ahead and change all of these percentages to format to 0 decimal places. Alright, so now our final step. Based on our frequency distribution for part 1, let's create a histogram. We need the title of the bin so we need to graph the frequency, and we want to use the title of the bin as labels. We need to make sure we have an appropriate title. Alright, so when we do this, we are going to select the frequencies. We are going to go to Insert on our toolbar, and we are going to make ourselves a bar chart. We want to make a bar chart because the bar chart gives us more flexibility with labels. That's why we're going to make a bar chart. So highlight the frequencies and make yourself a bar chart. Now in this bar chart, I need all of my bars to be touching. So I need to remove the gaps between the bars, and I need to change the labels on the bottom here to represent the title of the bin. So let's go ahead and change all the bars so they do not have the gap. Let's change them so they're all touching. Alright, so you're going to go to your chart, hover over it, right click on the bars. When you right click on the bars, you want to see this Format Data Series. You're going to open that. It should open a panel on the side. And then you should see this gap width. Take that slider, drag it all the way down to 0, and then you should see your bars form together. And then now let's change the titles on the bottom here. So the bottom here is labeled 1 through 11. Let's go ahead and change those to be the title of the bin, so we have the title sitting underneath the bar. So now we're going to right click on that bottom axis. So right click on those numbers, if you can get them. And then we're going to go to Select Data, and make sure you're only on the numbers. See how I'm only on the numbers here and not on the bars. Then I'm going to go to Select Data. This is going to open up an edit window for you. You want to find horizontal category axis labels, hit edit. Go to your title of the bins, select them, hit OK, and hit OK again. And then below the bars, you'll see the title of the bin numbers instead of 1 through 11, and that's what you want to see. So you have the frequencies as bar, you have the title of the bins as a label at the bottom, and then I have the chart title as anything besides the words chart title. And then this completes the DQ. Alright, I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions.